Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church. Hanley, I'm Pastor Charmley. This is another video in the series on Staffordshire churches. This is the little church. I'm sorry, I'm standing on a heating grill here and it's a little bit noisier than I anticipated. Anyway, this is the series on Staffordshire churches. This is Chebsey. This is All Saints Church, Chebsey. There's been a church here at least since the 11th century. When the Domesday Book was compiled in 1086, the Domesday Book is a tax register, and there is a priest recorded as being here in 1086. So as far back as the Domesday Book, we know that there was a church here. The oldest parts of the present building are from that kind of date. They are the north wall of the nave here and the chancel through there. And then around about when in the 13th century, the colonnade over here is built. The tower is added in the 14th century, and the building is basically then intact. It's basically complete apart from a vestry that is off the one and only aisle, the south aisle. It's a medieval church. It's a church with a great deal of history. It's another one of these cases where the Victorians have pulled all the plaster off the walls and gone, well, we think this looks more quote-unquote authentic. Of course it doesn't, because in medieval times there would have been plaster and it would have been painted with various scenes or in imitation of stone. That's another thing that you see. So as we go around, we'll see a number of things, one of which will be what happened to the old box pews, which is quite a common thing. Until the 19th century, there was a full set of box pews in here, three-decker pulpit and all the works. And of course all this is removed by the Victorians, who leave it. Well, I believe they put their own pews in, but those pews have now been replaced with movable chairs, which actually does get you back in some sense towards the medieval appearance, because of course as a medieval church originally there would have been no pews, just a few benches, and if you really needed to sit down, you bring your own stool or something. So here we are. This is All Saints Chebsey. Well, let's have a look around the building. We start, of course, as usual, at the west end, and as we look up here, we can see the roof. Now that is medieval, at least in part, and before the Victorians it would have had a ceiling, although it would originally have been open as we see it today. Now as we look around, we also note that you've got your modern seating. There is a Victorian pulpit, and along the walls are the remains of the old box pews. They've been used as a kind of dado panelling down there. We've got in here, we have the south aisle with its 13th century arcade. It's quite early 13th century with those big chunky pillars. But it's again very, very interesting. You've got your medieval chancel arch. That's going to be, again, 13th century by the look of it. Perhaps a little bit earlier than the arcade, or perhaps about the same time. We've got the same transition from the old rounded style to the pointed. So as we move forward, see down there, that I suspect is part of the old communion rail that has been brought down here to mark out the seating, which of course is now flexible. You can fit these seats together so you can move them around. And here we have Remembrance Day, we will not forget. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row. And below, box pew panelling. Quite a common thing to do, of course, because if you've got some decent woodwork, why waste it by throwing it out? Why not use it as panelling like that? We have a collection of old stones here. bits and pieces, bits of, you can see here, carved work, and there we've got here the a window, part of raised an old window. There is a very worn stone slab, and because its location, obviously you can't look at the front of it. And someone has misspelled Psalm in Psalm 23. It's Slam, it should be Psalm, but there we are. There we are, there is the pulpit, rather decent piece of oak, but replaced a rather nice three-decker. Chancel screen, tiny little chancel, because the Normans did tiny little chancels. This is why many Norman chancels don't exist anymore, because they've replaced. Lectern is a plain example. And here we are in the chancel, and again you've got that communion rail, so that would be a rail from something else, but definitely rails. East window, Kemp crucifixion. You've seen one Kemp crucifixion, you've seen them all in many ways. Kemp is celebrated. I'm not very keen on him myself, but there we are. This is a genuine Norman window, and you can see here how Norman windows work. You've got this great splay on the inside, but only the inside, not the outside. You've got a bit of alabaster of Erodos, I am the bread of life, and here we have King David composing Psalm 22. You can tell that, of course, because the text's quoted, but there's King David composing and there's his musicians. The fake medieval style, of course, is something that these Victorian stained glass artists were very big on making. And so you have this deliberate, anachronism, that's the word I'm looking for. Now here we have the remains of Post-Reformation wall painting, black letter text on scrolls. So the whitewash has been scrubbed off. There's never apparently a very thick layer of plaster here, just whitewash. And there's a little bit surviving, which reminds us that in the 17th century, 16th, 17th centuries, again, you have the church is painted, it's decorated, it's just decorated with Bible texts. We have a nice tiled floor here, probably Minton, because Stoke-on-Trent did a lot of tiles for church floors, and more broadly for churches. And then back into the nave, you can see all the way west there, and that little window up there into the tower, and upper chamber there, and then we have an organ. Organs, of course, very important. Again, the Victorians like their organs. Now down here we have another survivor. We have some medieval floor tiles. Can't see it very well because of the light. I can't do very much about that, but those are medieval floor tiles down there. And the organ, we are told, was a memorial of Her late Majesty Queen Victoria by the congregation, parishioners and friends. So it's 1901, following the death of Her Majesty Queen Victoria. And here we have St. Chad on the one hand and St. Helena on the other. St. Chad, of course, is the founder of Lichfield. That's why he's holding Lichfield Cathedral in his hand. Of course, didn't look like that in his day. St. Helena, St. Helen, is the mother of Constantine the Great. We have here half of a Norman window, which has been cut into and then reopened during Restoration. So it's your standard, really, medieval church. There's the font. It's a rather nice trumpet type. You find a number of them around here. Let's see what the notes say about the history of the font. The font is early English. So yes, again, it's your 13th century, probably. And the trumpet style it's quite known locally, and it is quite a diagnostic feature, as they say. We have a picture of loving shepherd of thy sheep, one of these Victorian, early 20th century Victorian, late Victorian pictures. And here we have all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. This again is it's a picture, sentimental picture that you find in quite a number of churches. It's usually in the children's corner and would have been there originally. And this is the vestry, so you know the toilet there. But what I want to show you is this. This is the church before the Victorians. You see there the three-decker, the box pews, the plain window, and this is the drawing done by the Victorian architect who did the restoration. So that's before, and as we go out we see after, so you can see that the windows have been medievalised, and that's the north door. When we see it outside, we'll see it's actually very interesting on the outside as well as the inside. It's one of the original Norman doorways. So that's the inside of All Saints Chebsey. We'll just have a look up here. We've got a nice lion mask there and there in the tower. The royal arms banished to the tower because of really changing ideas about these things. And here, the Westminster, actually, another thing that's important is here, Montague Wreathsley Noel, Commander Royal Navy, Financial Secretary of the Diocese of Lichfield, who with other brave comrades perished at sea in the course of convoy duty, 6th of April 1941. He was younger son to Admiral Charles Noel and Wilmot Juliana, his wife, and descended from Robert and Celestria Noel, founders of Raunton Priory in this neighbourhood, 1147. So one of the things this tells you is that he was a retired or naval officer who came out of retirement not to command warships but to lead the convoy. Convoys would have, in the Second World War, a naval officer in charge, in command, lead it as the commodore of the merchant ships. So he was killed during, either killed on one of these ships, or he was commanding one of the warships that escorted them. So I'm not sure which, but the other thing is that Montague Wreathsley Noel reminds us that a connection with the Victorian Evangelical Baptist Noel, who went over and actually became, he was originally an Anglican clergyman, who became, surprisingly, a Baptist. So there we are. That's one of these interesting memorials. There's a number of memorials in the tower, but in terms of the nave, I think things have been moved by the Victorians, who didn't like the idea of memorials in the nave in that way. So that's the inside. Let's go outside. Also, here we are outside at All Saints Chebsey. You can see immediately this wonderful 14th century tower. You can also see this tower is of a different type of stone from the rest of the building. The rest of the building is this red sandstone. The tower is a much greyer material. The porch is, I believe, 17th century or maybe early 18th, and it's little change. It's just how a little bit of twiddly bits put on by the Victorians. We've got, if I move over here, you can see the Norman chancel, which again is a slightly greyer stone from what we're seeing in the nave. And the nave wall here has largely been, well, you'll see when we get near the older bit and the newer bit. So that's the outside here. Now let's do our customary tour of the exterior. So there we go. That's the whole church. You can see Again, one of those, I think, 17th century windows in the chancel that hasn't been changed by the Victorians. It's got stained glass in it, but that's it. A very nice tower, number of memorials, obviously quite an extensive graveyard because of the history. There's the Marsh family, you can see the British flag flying there. Of course, this is recording this just before Remembrance Sunday. And as we get closer, you'll notice with the walls that the lower courses are rougher than the upper ones, and that of course tells us immediately the Victorians have renewed the upper courses there. The porch has yes, it's 18th century, it's 70, looks like it's quite well worn actually there, but it does look like it's a 17 something. Anyway, there's your porch. And again, this obviously local red sandstone, which, as you can see from the lower courses, weathers a bit. It's a wonderful setting. Oh, there we go. Clouds are receding here, and as we proceed around, you can see the stonework here. It's a very good stonework. You see remains of carvings up there. Flowers. Again, the window tracery has been renewed by the Victorians, and it does look like it needed it. Although it's stone, it's sandstone, and sandstone can often erode quite well. Now, this is the remaining Norman wall, and you can see here immediately you've got your Norman arch there that's been filled in, and you've got the surviving Norman window externally. It was interesting to look at. I've got a bit of a wind blowing up here. It happens. We're outdoors in England in the autumn. Well, you can see here the contrast outside between the Norman windows and the later windows, and those are, although the upper parts of the windows have obviously, and the tracery has been done by the Victorians, they clearly do represent windows that were put in later. And you see how different they are in size, and that of course because the Normans don't have glass. Not in a church like this anyway. So you're looking at open holes in the wall, and on an autumn day like this you can feel why you needed little holes in the wall rather than big ones. So that is the outside. There is quite a hill at the end of the churchyard here, as you can see, so we won't be able to stand at the bottom of that. That's where the road is, of course, where the car park is. And so here we are, around here there's the east window with that, again, rather curious tracery. It's quite clear that this is a simplified replacement. It's about the same date as the tower, so it tells us there was a major work done in that period, in the 14th century, to try to make the church a bit more fancy. And there's your simple hood moulding above that window. There's the priest's door, as it's generally referred to. So that is All Saints Chebsey. Well, we'll say a few words and then close. And so here we are, All Saints Chebsey. So you're just thinking, did I press the right button on the remote control? I did. So there we are, All Saints Chebsey, a little medieval church, Norman origins, 14th century tower. And you can see again here how these buildings grow over time and how they change, and how the interior has changed over time, from an open medieval church to a Post-Reformation church, all those box pews and high pulpit, to its present form with flexible chairs and just the low Victorian pulpit. And these buildings change over time to reflect the fact that what's wanted of them changes over time as well. Well, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy these videos. I like making them, and keeps me out of mischief and gives me a reason to get out of the house on my days off. But thank you very much for watching, and may God bless you and keep you in his mercy.